Now live. Hello, Instagram. It's Seth and Taylor. You can't see Taylor, but you can see Seth. And in a minute, we're going to be on Facebook as well. We're on Facebook as well. Hello, Facebook.
Yeah. Wow.
And you can see me and Taylor both. And we're recording this. And then we'll be on LinkedIn and who knows where, with a string and 2 Dixie Cups. How are you today, Taylor?
All right. I'm doing well. We're still working from home, but everything's looking good. So we've got a big conversation ahead of us today and an exciting launch that we're really excited to share about. So we'll kick it off with a conversation about the future of work. And we already have some questions from Instagram that I took last night. So we'll start sharing those. If you have questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the comments below.
Okay, so before we start, the world is topsy-turvy. It's upside down. We cannot deny what is going on around us. And unlike most of the challenges that everyone deals with every day, this is one we are sharing. And as a result, it's magnified. As a result, the tragedy that is unfolding in front of us is real for everyone. And we can't ignore it. It's part of who we are. It's part of the world that we are living in. But that doesn't mean we have to choose to be a victim of the idea, to be a victim of the fear, that if you are healthy, you have a chance to connect and to lead and to make things better. And the more of us do that, just for a circle of 10 or 20 people, that's enough, then that will spread. And so when we go to work, work is going to be different. And it's going to be different for a while to come. And we can view it as a chance to just interrupt our panic and our worry. But I'd hope that we can also view it as a chance to make things better and to redefine what it is we actually contribute when we do our work. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay, so, well, I guess we're going to start with a little bit about the Real Skills Conference. So we just launched this conference. It's all online. It's 2 hours, happening April 24th from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you want to learn more, it's realskillsconference.com. And Seth, do you want to riff a little bit about what
Sure.
it's for?
So launch means we launch the signups. It's a conference unlike most of what we do at akimbo.com, which are workshops. This is going to happen live and only live for 2 hours around the world. And we have done it before. It was an extraordinary event the last time we did it. 700 people took it. 97% of the people who were in it stayed until the end. There is no conference that has ever been held in the real world that 97% of the people were in the room at the end. And that's because it's not a webinar. It is not me talking to you, right? That's what I'm doing right now. This is different. I'm only in it for a few minutes. This is about you connecting to other people. What are you connecting about? What are we working on? We're working on what we call real skills. Some people call them soft skills. These are the skills of showing up with our actual human selves to do the work that matters. The easy to measure skills, how fast can you type, whether you can figure out the load bearings on a bridge, those are important, but that's not what matters in this moment. What matters in this moment are the other skills that are often overlooked. And there's a whole list of them at realskillsconference.com. It's not very expensive. If you can't afford it, we totally get it. And maybe in the future, it's something you'll want to engage with. Also, because you're listening today, just a heads up, if you click the purple circle when you get to realskillsconference.com, you'll save a whole bunch of money. So, Taylor, what did I leave out?
The only thing I would really add is this isn't something where you could just sit back and watch. This is something where you're going to hear a little bit of speakers, and then you're really going to engage and talk about conversations that are hard. And it is a really cool experience. I had so much fun watching it unfold and hearing the stories afterwards. So if you're looking forward to having a conversation around change and really getting to the bottom of what is the future of work, this is a place to do it.
And today on Slack,
right.
On Slack, the whole office was talking about the fact that we have to figure out what to do when it sells out, because it's going to sell out. So we are super aware that a lot of people are at wit's end right now, and you may not have resources. So we built a virtual co-working space that's free. There's all the videos that are free. There's all the stuff that we are trying to do to help people level up. This is a second thing, and if you can join us, we would love to have you. Okay, let's do some Q&A.
And they can find out about the co-working space just at akimbo.com. Okay, we'll start off with a question from Parker from Instagram from last night. He said, given the state of the world, what does it mean to you, Seth, for people to show up even though they're afraid?
Right. Showing up even though you're afraid. In my experience, there are two kinds of work. There is the work where we are a compliant cog in an industrial system, where we know exactly what we are going to do, and we are going to get paid to do it. And the problem with that kind of job is you have likely been abused, you have likely been taken advantage of, and you are likely to be replaced by a computer, a robot, or someone cheaper than you. The other kind of work is work where we are doing something we're not sure is going to work. It's work where we have to make a choice about leaning into that work. And what goes with that choice is fear. The fear of it might not work. Now, we're overlaying that very fear with the fear of the whole world is going to end, with the fear of an asteroid is going to come from the sky and knock down our house. And it's very easy to conflate those two fears. But in my experience, the easiest way to get out of your head when you're fearful for family and culture and life is to embrace a different fear. And you probably can't go climb a rock in Yosemite, but what you could do is the generous work of leadership. Because the generous work of leadership is a fear you can influence. It's a fear you can leverage. And part of what it means to lead is to do something you're not sure is going to work. And I have been spending 30 years trying to sell people on that feeling, because I think that feeling is a privilege.
Awesome. All right, so this one is from Isaac, and he said, I'm starting out in the business world. How do I balance chasing knowledge and actually developing skills?
Thank you, Isaac. Love this. Do you know where knowledge comes from? It doesn't come from textbooks. I have read marketing textbooks. They're terrible. The people who write marketing textbooks either pretend they've never done marketing or they never have done marketing, because marketing textbooks exist to get you to take the marketing test. Where learning actually comes from is from doing. Now, if you want to learn how to be, a tightrope walker, that's sort of dangerous to learn on the job. Because if you try to walk a tightrope that's 100 feet off the ground, you don't get many second chances. But for most of the work we do, when we are selling, when we are inventing, when we are writing, when we are creating new ideas, when we are putting change into the world, when we are connecting, if you get it wrong, you get a chance to do it again. And so, what an amazing time to be 20 or 25 years old, because the world is saying to you, we don't have any rules anymore. We just broke all of them. So please lead us. And the way you're going to do it is not by reading a textbook. You're going to do it by doing it.
Awesome. That's such a good message from a young perspective too, to hear that. So cool. Let's go into this question. So we talk a lot on these lives about hiring and working with linchpins, and meaning people who are indispensable. And Sulan is wondering what types of questions you suggest asking when hiring to get someone who's great on your team.
Right. So Taylor can testify to this. I do not believe that hiring people who are good at interviewing is a useful act unless the person you're hiring is going to do interviews for a living. That we made this mistake a long time ago, that being charming in an interview has something to do with your ability to do your job. I don't think it does. And thousands of people have worked for me and with me over the years, and I have never seen a correlation between the people who were great at interviewing and the people who were great at their job, because your job isn't interviewing. So what does that mean? It means you have to have the guts to hire people based on what they've done, not the way they act in an interview. Down the street from me is the Grayston Bakery, the legendary Grayston Bakery. If you've ever had Ben & Jerry's ice cream with brownies in it, you have had one of their brownies. Here's what they do at the Grayston Bakery. They understand that there is nothing you can say in an interview about your ability to pour batter into a tray and bake it that will determine whether you're good or not at being a baker. And because they have a social mission, here's how they hire. They make a list of all the people who want a job. Doesn't matter if you've been a drug addict, doesn't matter if you've been to prison, it doesn't matter what your background is. They make a list. And when a job opens up, the next person on the list gets the job. And if you can make it through training, if you can show up on a regular basis, if you can do the work, you can stay. Open hiring. It freaks people out when I say this, because we have this myth that we can control who's going to show up. So, no, you can't do open hiring for every job, because not every job is baking brownies. But what you can do is say, show me your work. Show me your work. And if your work makes sense, well, then I'll give you a freelance project. And that's how I was lucky enough to engage with Taylor, and so glad she's on the team. We gave her a freelance project. She hit it out of the park. I said, well, she can do this every day. We need this person. The end. And Taylor was like, don't I have to have like a fancy interview and stuff? I was like, why?
Yeah. And it is funny, one of our first conversations, I remember you asking the question. It wasn't a formal interview, but you asked, what are your favorite kind of interactions? And that was like one of my favorite questions I've ever been asked, because as you know, just from knowing me now for almost a year, like that's what I'm all about, is connecting with people. And so that was a really cool question. That wasn't a typical interview or anything, but really allowed me to kind of show who I was outside of work and how I could bring that type of person inside of work. All right, cool.
So it takes guts to be a boss who has linchpins who work there, because you don't get to tell them what to do all day. And you have to trust that you are creating an environment where good work is going to happen. And if you don't have a boss like that, well, then not today and not tomorrow, but someday you should get a different boss. And the way you will get a different boss is by becoming the kind of person that a boss who likes linchpins wants to hire. You can't just show up and say, I'm really good at compliance, and hope that a good boss is going to pick you.
Okay, so I have a question off of that that's kind of, I'm curious about a riff. So I think there's a lot of people who use that phrase, like, are you the smartest person in the room? And we tackle that inside of the Alt MBA a lot, of you show up and then there's suddenly 125 people in the Zoom room that first day, and you're like, oh my God, I like know that this is an incredible cohort, and I suddenly felt like, wow, do I belong here? You know, you're starting to feel like an imposter. And I think that there are a lot of bosses out there who want to be the smartest person in the room. And so could you just talk a little bit about that and what it's like if you have a boss like that, how to really manage that?
Sure. So the question ended in a way I didn't expect. So let me regroup for a second. Oh. So first of all,
well, I mean, you can take
no, I really like the question. You talked about the Alt MBA. We've got a deadline coming up at altmba.com if people want to check it out. Excuse me. Practical empathy is essential. Practical empathy says, I don't know what you know, I don't want what you want, I don't believe what you believe, and that's okay. And if you're not willing to say that, then please don't expect that your boss is going to get the joke, no matter how amazing she is. Because everyone carries around their own agenda. Everyone carries around their own analysis of what matters. So, if you work for someone, and it's really important to that person to be able to say to their boss, this is reliable, then you better bring them something that's reliable. If you work for somebody and it's really important to them that they claim credit, well, then it's helpful to bring them something that lets them claim credit, because you don't get to change people just because you want to. What you get to do instead is work with what someone already does and wants. And if you show up for them in the way they need you to show up, it's more likely you will get what you want, which is forward motion, which is the chance to do your craft. But it never pays to whine about your boss. Just like it doesn't pay to whine about gravity. Gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared. Gravity is not going anywhere. And if it went away, you'd be able to jump higher. But so would everybody else. Gravity's not going away. Neither is your boss. So the practical empathy of going forward will make a difference.
Great. Okay. Cool. So this question's from Adam, and it ties directly into what we're talking about today. He said, what trends do you think will escalate in the future of work?
So there's only one trend I've been keeping track of when it comes to work, and I've been keeping track of it for 30 years, and the trend hasn't changed, and it's just going to keep going. It's the only trend you need to know about, which is that work worth doing is not industrial work. Work worth doing is personal work. It is real work. It is human work. That the work that's going to get done by a compliant, hard-working, sprinting industrial player isn't going to get done by you. Not if you're going to get paid fairly. It's going to get done by a machine, by a system, by someone outside of the building that you are in. This has been going on since 1975, and it continues. It is the story of my entire working life. And so, you've got to decide if you want to fight for your industrial cog spot, or if you want to take advantage of this moment and do the hard work. It's really, really hard work of owning your voice and of leveling up, not acting like you're actually a contribution, but becoming a contribution.
Awesome. Okay, so I think on our website for the Real Skills Conference, there's this huge list of skills. And I got this question a lot last time, and now I'm seeing it again in this feed of like, oh, I counted and there's 43 skills on that list, and there's only 2 hours of the conference.
That's right.
Does that mean 2 minutes is going to be spent on each skill? And the reality is that's not how it's going to work.
Correct.
They are going to be woven into each minute of the conference, and at the end you'll realize, I get it now. There's going to be a joke. And so
Correct.
That's how we run a lot of our workshops. And so I wanted to address that.
Love it.
But
yes.
In that same respect, Stepping on Facebook asked, on that list, and Seth, you don't even need to look at the list because we know you know what's on that list. He said, what is the most important one for starting out in the working world?
The most important real skill for starting out in the working world. Well, when we say starting out, what we mean is that you have choices to make. You have options. And it feels to me like the most important skill is acting with generosity to ship your work to the world. Earlier than you think you should. Over and over again. Deciding to connect people. Deciding to lead people. Deciding not to wait until you have a certificate before you start doing something that matters. I'm not a sports fan, but if I was a sports fan, I would point out that when Michael Jordan stopped playing basketball and played baseball for a little while, he was pretty good at it. He wasn't amazing at it, but he was pretty good at it. Is that because he's truly physically gifted? No. It's because he has an attitude. And the attitude that he had works in basketball and baseball. What is your attitude? What attitude are you going to bring to the next project, to the next client, to the next job opportunity? Because it's that attitude that changes it. If your attitude is, you can pick anyone, please pick me, because I'm anyone. I'll do what you ask me to do, and I'll do it reliably. Well, then you're on a really long list. Whereas if your attitude is, I can do something that other people don't want to do, don't care to do, don't know how to do, and this is what I'm doing, want to come? Not everyone wants to hire you, but you don't need every job. You just need one, a good one.
Yeah. All right.
Do you have a different answer to that one?
I think that you made a good point about really being able to make decisions and put yourself first and that sort of respect. I think that one of the things as I started to I'm fresh out of college. I graduated back in May. So one of the lessons that I've learned and skills I've refined in the last couple of years, and I'm definitely not an expert at it, but is realizing when to say yes and when to say no. And I think that's a really important skill. And I hit a point in college where I realized I couldn't say yes to everything, and it wasn't good to say yes to everything. And so I had to start asking myself the question of, am I going to grow from this experience in a way that's going to move me forward and that I'm excited about? And if the answer was yes, and I had the space and capacity for it, then I took that leap. But that was a really important skill going forward. And I think it's important to remember as you apply for that first job or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, well said.
Cool. So this one's from Marina, and it's so spot on with everything going on in the world. She said, interaction communication on Zoom is a different experience than in person. Any recommendations? And this feeds so well into the Real Skills Conference. As we know, conferences are typically held in person, and so many of them are getting canceled right now because of everything going on in the world. And what I think is a bit ironic is this came out back in January for the first time before this had happened. And it wasn't like we could see into the future and know that we were going to have all these cancellations coming up, but there was a really cool excitement about the future with this digital conference space. Yeah. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, and then I can add some.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it for an hour. It's been it's been all we've been doing at Akimbo for more than 4 years. The tactics, go to seths.blog/Zoom, seths.blog/Zoom, and you'll see my 9 tactics that every single person on a Zoom call has to read before you show up. Here's one little tip. If you're on a Zoom, if you're on a conference call and you put yourself on mute, no one can hear you or see you. But if you're on a Zoom call and you're on mute, we can still see you. So don't do things, because we're seeing you. All right, but leaving that aside. I did a blog post 2 weeks ago. You can search on my blog for conversation. And my argument is we are making a really big mistake in our rush to move meetings and schooling online, because we're trying to bring the same power dynamic and lecture mindset and status roles thing to a new platform, when what we should be doing is using this platform for conversation. And it's really interesting. If you look on Instagram, there are all these people who are throwing things by, and I see it now and then. And there are people who are talking to Taylor, and then you can read the comments and you can answer people. All that would be impossible if we were sitting in a conference room. How do we maximize that? That's what we're trying to do. That's what our workshops do. You know, we're launching another workshop next week. We're coming back with one. And in the typical workshop we do, the average person gives and gets 500 pieces of feedback a month. Where else are you in life where you're giving and getting 500 things a month? That's magic. That's what digital is for. It's not for me talking at you, which I'm enjoying today, but that's not the best use of this medium.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the best parts to lean into is just the technology of knowing that on Zoom, for example, which is what we use with our different workshops, they have these things called breakout rooms that I am a huge fan of. And in those, you're able to connect one-on-one, where in a conference, you might be sitting next to a couple of different people, but you don't have deep conversations during that conference. And this medium allows us to do that. So we've had the opportunity to lean into that. And I think that's what has made some of our workshops and this conference successful. Cool. Okay, let's go back to questions. I got into a little riff there and I lost my Instagram questions. Okay, cool.
Can we answer the authenticity question that just came by?
Sure.
Do you see it?
This is a hot topic. There's so many questions coming.
How do you maintain authenticity yet have a sense of opportunity? So I've talked about this before, but I love talking about this. Authenticity is a myth. Authenticity is nonsense. Authenticity is a chance to hide. Your authentic self might want to be running screaming and sitting in the corner. Your authentic self might want to just stay home and suck your thumb. Your authentic self didn't want to put clothes on. Whatever your authentic self did, no one cares. We want your consistent self. Stand for something every day, consistently. Choose it. Choose it in a way that you can be proud of. Consistency. That's what people want from you. This whole idea of, well, I said that because I authentically didn't like the guy. Well, then you're not being a professional. If I go for knee surgery, I don't want an authentic knee surgeon. I want a consistent one who does a really good job every single time, no matter how she felt that morning when she walked into the operating room. Consistency. That's a real skill. That was a rant. Sorry.
All right. Yeah, that was like, yeah, you got a little fired up there. All right, this one's from Nikki, and we actually were talking about this yesterday, the difference between extroverted people and introverted people. And this question is, what advice do you have for an introverted leader?
Yeah. So I know people who are charismatic, who can go to an event, shake hands and smile at people. I am one of those people sometimes. And then when they're off duty, they're not like for a hobby showing up on Instagram and talking to other people just for fun. That being introverted is definitely on a spectrum, but work involves effort. And part of the effort of bringing a real skill to the table is you might not feel like showing up for someone, looking them in the eye. It may be difficult for you to get up and speak, but that's your job. And if you can't do that, well, then don't pick a job where that is required. But what it means to be a leader is to invite other people along on a journey, to gain enrollment. It's voluntary. And there are lots of ways to gain enrollment without being a social media person. There are lots of ways to lead without anybody knowing your name. But you still have to be willing at some level to put yourself on the line and say, I'm going over there. Who wants to come? And then you can create cycles and cycles and cycles around it. And so I'm definitely not on the shyest end of the shy spectrum. I totally get that. But my friend Susan Cain, who did that TED Talk about quiet, she really is. But she found it within herself to stand up on the TED stage because it was important to her to invite people to follow her. So no, you don't have to be glib, and you don't have to be loud, but you do have to invite people along for the journey.
All right, cool. This question is from Katie, and it kind of goes off of that leading, because we know that right now people are leading from home. And so Katie's wondering what you think about the future of remote work and if that will become increasingly popular now, given everything that's been going on in the world.
So I did a riff about this 2 weeks ago. We got to be really careful what we mean by work. The work of putting stuff in boxes, that's hard to do on Zoom. The work of surgery is really hard to do on Zoom. But many people who during the day are able to get on a social media platform and watch a conversation like this, many people who have office jobs were paid well to be part of a corpus of people. And the boss was gaining status by having all those people around. And the office, like the TV show, was part of it. If we take that away, we better replace it with something useful. And so I think we're about to have a race for organizations not to brag about how many employees they have, but to brag about how few employees they have. And the employees they have who are working remotely, who are working from home, it's not about how many hours, it's what did you ship? What change did you make? And that's a big, big adjustment. Because if you're used to going to an office, what you were keeping store of, how many meetings did I go to? And it's going to be hard for me to see how organizations of the future who have CFOs who are trying to balance the books are going to look at all those people going for meetings at home and not keep track of what got shipped. And that's going to be the biggest change.
Yeah, I think that's so true. This question's from Jonathan to bounce off, and we'll only take a couple more questions. This is a long live, but there's so many questions coming in. I just want to keep going. So this one's from Jonathan. He said, even though we talked about Zoom calls being helpful and that you can really see each other physically, like you're there, one of the things that we find people still doing is hiding. So how do you avoid hiding even though you're seen on a Zoom call?
Oh, it's easier to hide when you're seen on a Zoom call. Way easier to hide because you were present. And so you can say, well, I was busy all day. I was in someone said this to me yesterday, I was in 6.5 hours of Zoom calls. Yeah, but what did you ship? Because you're still good at hiding. If you want to tell me that you were busy all day, tell me what you shipped. Tell me who you changed. Tell me how you made a connection happen that was transformative. And so for the short term, because of this tragedy, because of this huge disconnect, we're just going to be taking attendance. And people are going to be sheltering in place emotionally. But this is going to be a long slog, and there will be another side. There's always another side to every slog. And on the other side of the slog, the question is, how did you act during this period of time? Who did you become? Who looked up to you? Who did you help? And those choices have nothing to do with how many hours that you spend in Zoom.
Yeah, if anyone hasn't heard a little bit more on that riff, we just put a quick clip from your podcast with Brian that goes deeper into that on Instagram. So they can go ahead and check that out from yesterday. And it was a riff that I really enjoyed given what's going on in the world. So this one's from Yolanda. Like I said, we'll pick a couple more questions. She is wondering how to stay connected and generous to customers when going through an economic down point.
Generous doesn't mean free. Generous doesn't mean you have to blow up what you do in order to deal with the emergency of the moment. Generous means seeing other people. Generous means treating people the way you would like to be treated. Generous means not manipulating, not using this moment to take advantage. But it also takes a lot of emotional effort. The labor of showing up to see something you might not want to look right in the eye. That when people talk about a doctor that has made a difference in their life, they never say, this doctor made a difference in my life. She didn't charge me anything. What they say is, this doctor saw me. She understood what I was going through. She helped me. She made me better. And I was happy to pay because that mattered to me. So if you want to show up for your customers, you can start by showing up by seeing them, not just buying their affection.
All right, cool. This one is from Anton, and then we'll go into a little bit of a riff on real skills before we head out. Anton said, what is a great way to choose which change you want to make, especially during this time in history?
Yeah, it's easy to get stuck because there are so many things to do, so many places to contribute. And I think it's simply picking one. Come down to 10. Figure out 10 that you could live with. Put each one on a popsicle stick. And then throw the popsicle sticks down, and whichever one lands closest to you, that's it. And if you're not ready for that one to be it, don't put it on the popsicle stick. So now you're down to 5. And if it's 1 of 5, simply pick. Because there is no perfect one. There's simply this moment in time when we have to do something.
Great. Okay, so this question is our last question. It's from Sarah, and it feeds in perfectly to the end of this. Sarah said, what is the difference between a real skill and a hard skill?
Hard skills are easy to measure. Hard skills get you a certificate. Those are the two things that make them hard skills. We need hard skills. Our world is built on hard skills. Hard skills aren't going away. If you have a hard skill, make it harder. But real skills, which used to be called soft skills, are the things that actually lead to change. The things that can contribute to leadership and connection and longevity and care. These are things that have historically been undervalued for two reasons. One, because women are good at them, and two, because they're harder to measure. But what we have discovered is that that's what we need right now. It's what we've always needed, but we need it now more than ever.
Definitely. All right, cool. So to wrap this up, realskillsconference.com. Let me make sure it's the real skills. No. It is real skills. Know the. And look for the purple circle. That will give you a special discount for today, but it isn't going to last forever, and it will decrease in value over time. So now's the time to snag that. And just for anyone who was joining late, the Real Skills Conference is happening on April 24th. It's a Friday. If you're in America, it is from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The spots are limited, and we're really looking for people who are excited to have conversations and show up and contribute, because this is 80% participation, only 20% speakers. Any final things from you, Seth?
Just know that I care really deeply about what we're going through, you're going through, all of us are going through, and you're being seen right now. And this is going to be a slog. It's going to be a hard, long slog. And the only way to get through a slog is one step at a time. So be safe, flatten the curve, take care of people around you, and here's the peace of mind.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Go make a ruckus.